Three, two, one. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're at in the U.S. and around the world. This is Baseball Outside the Box. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo, and thanks for joining us, all of you. I know it's 10 days in, but again, we'll just tell you Happy New Year all of January. Maybe all year we might do that because we want everybody to have a great year, a great 2022. And before we start the show, we just got back from the American Baseball Coach Association convention here in Chicago. Yes, our home city, my home city. What a great convention. We had over 4,000 coaches, and obviously because of COVID and flight restrictions and other things with weather. But I know they had probably another 3,000 to 4,000, watching online. It was a fantastic convention. We had a great time. For all our international coaches, listen to us, please. This is the greatest investment you will make. Go to abca.org. Join the organization. It is the greatest coaches organization in the world. You won't believe the things you will get. I mean, you'll get videos of all the conventions, all of them in the past history. There's so much knowledge there. It's not that expensive. We encourage all of you. Federations, if you're listening, tell your coaches to join. abca.org. We'll be getting you information even more. It is a great, great investment. And thank you, everybody in the U.S. and around the world for helping the show out, get out. We're in over 100 countries. So a special thanks to everybody listening. We're on Facebook Live, YouTube, and also Twitter. And don't forget Baseball Outside the Box. And lastly, special thanks to ESPN Honolulu for all your help. And we're going to talk today. Today's a great show. Ran into a friend. He's got what a great background. We ran into the ABCA convention. Brent Haring. He is the assistant coach at BYU, Brigham Young University, also the recruiting coordinator. And in 2019, BYU's recruiting class ranked 16th in the nation, Division I. I mean, an outstanding coaching program. He's also the head coach, get this, of the American Samoa national team. Yes, folks, if you're not familiar, American Samoa has a national team. They've got some great players. Great. It sounds like some great athletes. And obviously, they've been doing a good job. They're going to be competing in the 18U WBSC World Championships next year in Florida. And get this, in 2019, they defeated Australia, ranked 7th in the world. So we're going to be talking to Brent about that. So let's not waste any time. He's a busy person. He's got a lot of recruiting to do. And we'll get into a lot more details of about Brent, about American Samoa baseball, also in BYU. So let me welcome right now, Brent Haring. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Peter. I can't tell you how grateful I am and how humbled I am to be here with you. And I really appreciate you having me.
Well, I got to tell you, I can't believe I haven't had you earlier, man. With your background, I mean, not only with BYU and American Samoa, but, as we're talking offline, all of a sudden we're talking about our good friend. I know, you've known him a lot, maybe, I don't know about a lot longer, but maybe equal. Ray Birmingham, Dick Birmingham, you talked about starting Show Me Baseball School. I went to Mickey Own Baseball School. Hey, let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, well, shoot. I've known Dick and Ray for a long time. I consider Ray to be one of my greatest mentors in the game of baseball, and I love him. We still talk regularly. He's like the perfect old school baseball guy, and a guy that you could sit and talk to Ray and just listen to him tell stories and for hours and hours and hours. And his uncle Dick was the exact same way. I mean, no matter where Dick went, he took over. I mean, I remember going out to eat with him, and he'd have waitresses eating out of his hands, and he was the best. And so, yeah, I'm where I'm at today because of guys like that. And there's not a greater mentor. I have a picture hanging in my office. We were fortunate. We played in the COVID year, so I guess that was 2020. We played New Mexico, at New Mexico, and our head coach, Coach Littlewood, was kind enough to give me the opportunity to go out to the plate before one of the games with Ray, and somebody got a picture of it, a picture of us at the plate with the umpires, and that's one of my fondest memories, and something I'll cherish forever. I have that picture hanging in my office.
Yeah, that's awesome. And folks, if you're following on Facebook, because that's where we're following, I'm looking down at Facebook. Appreciate you joining. Twitter and YouTube, we don't have the ability to check you out on those two social media networks, but we are live there. And it's interesting because, same as you, if it wasn't for Dick Birmingham, there's no way I would be even close to doing what I'm doing. And as you said, I remember sitting with Dick many times, different places, and we're talking about big names, Whitey Herzog, other big league, guys, and you think those guys would be doing the talking. Well, Dick commanded, the show. I mean, they wanted to listen to him, and I remember him, listening to him at the ABCA. Ray Birmingham, I was at Mickey on Baseball School with him. Had him on a podcast recently. If you guys want to check that podcast out, go to baseballoutsidethebox.com. Ray Birmingham, outstanding coach. Brent, since you talked about them, talk about the importance of, both of us being where we're at. If we didn't have mentors, how does somebody go after mentors, or something? Like with Coach Birmingham, he kind of started with me at 15. I don't know why, but he just started helping me right away, and it just snowballed from there. Some advice for our coaches out there, or young people getting in the game?
Yeah, I would say, kind of going off what you talk about to start the show, go to the ABCA convention and get outside of your comfort zone and go and introduce yourself to coaches and get to know people. Like Ray and I, he'd just taken the job at New Mexico, from New Mexico Junior College, where obviously that was a powerhouse. He won a national championship, and we went and worked a camp together at Show Me Baseball Camp. And, I just wanted to pick his brain. I wished I could have got everything out of his brain in that week. And he was so gracious, and the relationship just built. And I've been fortunate, I think, to have great mentors, and I've worked for great coaches, and I've had great people mentor me. And now, I guess, as we get older, we're looking for opportunities to do that to some of the younger guys. Like I said, I want to follow in the footsteps of those guys. They're the guys that have made this game great, and I hope to help push the game along to the younger generation, the same way they have done for me.
Hey, folks, again, Facebook, if you got any questions, what a great time to ask, Brett Haring. I mean, talking about coaching, one of the assistant coaches, BYU, one of the top programs, not to mention recruiting coordinator. So he's got an idea of what type of players, he's looking for. And also, when coaches call, what he's going to be asking about certain players, and that also helps players. Brent, the other area I was thinking about, with both baseball schools, Make Your Own Baseball School and Show Me, I wanted to mention this again because, we don't have schools like that anymore. I know the game's changing, there's travel teams, and the good things happen in the game. I get it, but man, what great times. We're talking about, I know this. I played 100 games in the summer at Make Your Own Baseball School. I practiced probably twice as much, maybe 3 times sometimes. I umpired 100 games. And as a counselor, I also maintained fields. I had my own baseball field. I spent 10 years there, and then later on developed in the coaching and all that. We don't have those anymore, but we do need to get back to some basics. I think sometimes, when it comes to the fundamentals, and baseball schools like that really helped us.
100%. I mean, I think the thing that sticks out to me was just how much we practiced with those kids.
Mm-hmm.
When I was coaching there in the summer, we would do, we do 8 weeks. And, man, those kids get 6 days of practice, and they get 6 games under their belt. And I think today, we're so busy in the travel ball thing, and they play a ton of games, and all that's just fine and good. They're playing 3 or 4 games a day. And in my opinion, I think they'd be better suited to play 1 game a day in the evening and spend 4 or 5 hours out on the field working on those fundamentals, working on how to pick up a ground ball and learning the game, learning the details of turning a double play and learning the details of running a rundown. And those are the things that are starting to like slowly fade in our game. And I think that experience for me was unbelievable. In my coaching career, for me to spend a full week with, say, a group of 8 to 10-year-old kids teaching those basics, man, I got so much better as a coach. And it's funny, here at BYU, we're teaching those kids the same exact principles that I taught those 8-year-old kids. Now, maybe at a little higher level, but it's the same principle. And I think those kids could really benefit from that, from the practice element.
Man, I am thrilled that you brought that up because I can't imagine the number of times that I have told coaches, listen, or young coaches, but even, coaches that are experienced that maybe didn't work with young kids. I said, I always used to say, because that's where I spent my life, starting at 17 as an instructor at Make Your Own Baseball School, working with young kids. When you can work with those kids, go work with them, because if you go work with them, the older kids, man, to me, they're just that much easier. Because you've got to really break it down and keep it simple for those young kids, where when the older guys, it's some adjustments here and there.
100%, man. I mean, if you can get a kid, an 8-year-old kid that wants to sit and draw in the dirt, if you can get him engaged and excited to field the ground ball and field it the right way, then when you get your college kid or your pro guy that really wants to do it, you can get those guys engaged and they'll get better. So I would say one of the best things that ever happened for me in my coaching career was Show Me Baseball. It got me started, and learning how to teach the game to a young kid, like I said, was the greatest benefit to my coaching career.
If we got some young kids, young players listening, I know you don't want to hear this from your parents, but when I was at Make Your Own Baseball School, I remember getting up early in the morning, having breakfast, fixing the field, then going to practice, then going to lunch, then coming back and fixing the field, then having practice, then going back, having dinner, fixing the field again 3 times, then playing a game, and then umpiring the next game. And I didn't get done till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm not bringing that up, folks, because I'm trying to brag. I'm just trying to tell you that helped me understanding all those things, doing all those things. And I wasn't very disciplined. So I needed that too. And I do want to mention to everybody, especially our international coaches, but also the coaches in the U.S., young coaches, abca.org, go to it. And I'll tell you why, I forgot about this, but they also have a mentorship program during the convention where coaches go and listen to some other coaches, but also get a chance to talk individually to coaches that, you might be looking for a mentor. Because I'll tell you why I mentioned that. Earlier you said, go to the convention and it gives you an opportunity to meet people. While I wasn't very good at approaching anybody. I was kind of shy and I wasn't good at it. So that kind of program helps.
100%. I the same way as you. I mean, I would just force myself to go up and introduce myself to people, and, as a young coach, a funny story. I remember my very first convention was in San Diego. I want to say in 2002 or 2003 or something like that. I was in graduate school. I was coaching at Haring University, and we had nothing. My wife was going to school full time, and I was going to school full time and coaching, and just getting a little stipend to take care of the field. And we literally we took all the money that we had and got me into the convention and got me a flight to San Diego, and hooked up with a coaching buddy and slept on the floor of his hotel room.
Wow.
And I decided, like, hey, if we're going to make this investment, if it's that important to me and to my sweetheart, man, I'm going to really take advantage of every minute. And so I did. I went out and I was shaking hands of the Skip Bertmans and the Coach Pollenses and all those people, and just I wanted to meet them, and I wanted to get a start, and I wanted to pick their brains, and every one of them was so very gracious. Coach Corbin and all those guys, that would probably not even remember ever even having a conversation with me. And man, they were so impactful to me.
It's interesting also, you mentioned that because you're right, they're very approachable. If you're in an elevator, with any coach, really, if you're in an elevator, I know at first you don't want to say hi, but if you just say hi and where you're from, boom, that starts that conversation. You never know where that leads. Now, speaking about that, you didn't start at BYU. How did you get started in your first coaching gig, and how did it snowball? Were you always looking for a new gig, or did you just focus on what you needed to do, at that time, and things just happened?
Yeah, so I was a player at Southern Virginia University at the time, was a little NAIA school. They've now transitioned to NCAA Division III, but back then we were NAIA. I was looking for something to do in the summer. I knew I wanted to get into coaching. And so I called every overnight camp in the country and said, hey, I want to come work this summer. Christopher Schroeder at Show Me Baseball Camp gave me that opportunity. And so I'll always be indebted to Christopher. Went out that first summer. I want to say that was my junior year. And I worked the camp and got to meet a lot of coaches, college coaches and high school coaches and people that were working the camp and obviously the kids, pro guys. I mean, we had Ozzie Smith come in that summer. And so, what a great experience for me. I did it again the following summer. So I just finished my eligibility and I went back to work. I had the intention of going back to Southern Virginia. I hadn't finished my degree. I was going to go back and be a student assistant and finish up my degree. And while I was there, I was working with Coach Patrick McGahey, who at the time had just taken the job at College of the Ozarks there in Branson, Missouri. And we hit it off. I mean, we had a great connection and a good friendship. And, I worked hard, and I think he recognized that. And he asked me if I would come on and jump on and be an assistant and give me an opportunity to recruit, my first year out.
Wow.
And I took that opportunity. And to this day, Coach McGahey is one of my very best friends in the whole wide world. I love him. I owe him my career because he gave me an opportunity and, let a young kid go out and learn on the fly, and supported me. And I love him. I owe, like I said, I owe my whole career to him. And that led, from one job to the next job to the next job. And ultimately I got to go back and be with him at Haring. And he paid for me to get a master's degree. And
wow.
So I absolutely love that man.
Yeah, and if we didn't have people like that in our lives, again, like we said earlier, it'd be hard to do certain things in the game of baseball. It's very competitive. Now BYU. Talk about BYU because we got a lot of folks on that listen, that watch, that are all over the world. And like you talk about the school and a little bit about, because I want to get into the recruiting process, what kind of BYU is looking for.
Yeah, so I guess just to finish up. So when I finished my master's degree at Harding University, I was looking for a job. I didn't have a job. And so I went that summer up to the Northwoods League as a coach, and I was coaching in the Northwoods League. The whole summer I still didn't have a job. I was applying for every job, and I went home. I originally grew up in St. George, Utah, and I went home for my little sister's wedding. And while I was home, I went actually to an independent minor league baseball game, the Zion Pioneers, or I guess the Road Runners at that point, and ran into an old friend, Trent Pratt, who I coach with now at BYU. And we got talking. He asked what I was doing. I told him I'm looking for a job. And he, at the time, was coaching at Dixie College, which at the time was NCAA Division II. They just transitioned into Division II from being a junior college. And he said, hey, you should call Coach Littlewood, who was the head coach. We need another guy. And I had played against Coach Littlewood in junior college, so there was a little familiarity. I had coached his son in American Legion baseball.
Mm.
So there was some familiarity. I called him. He offered me a job to come coach at Dixie College, and it became Dixie State University. And we were there together for 4 years. Our last year, he got the job at BYU and offered us to come with him up to BYU. And so we're going on our 10th year together as a staff at BYU, and,
Wow.
and 14 years together as a staff between Dixie and BYU. And so we're, what a special thing that is. I mean, that's pretty rare in today's
yeah.
game to have that kind of cohesiveness. And so I really, I can't thank Coach and Trent. I mean, those guys, I've been around them so long. They're like part of our family, and we're part of their family. We've seen our kids grow up and be born and all of that together. BYU's it's a great place. It's a special place. It's the school is owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is kind of a cool thing because it gives us a little bit of an international feel. There's, the church is worldwide,
Mm-hmm.
and so we have a following worldwide. We're really fortunate in the fact that we have BYU TV that streams pretty much all of our games. And so, man, we have people worldwide watching our games. It seems like no matter where we go in an airport, somebody will stop us and say, "Hey, I watched your game on TV. You guys are doing great." Or, "Hey, you guys got to pitch better or hit better," or whatever, So, but that's been great. The school itself is unbelievable. It's one of the highest academic schools in the country. We say, hey, it's an Ivy League type education,
Mm-hmm.
but with an opportunity to play baseball or play sports at a really high level. The academic standards are great. There's several schools that are in the top 10 in the country in what they study. And then the most unique thing is that every student that comes to BYU signs an honor code, basically saying that they'll live a Christian lifestyle, that they'll take care of their bodies, they'll take care of their spirits, and they'll live their life in a Christian lifestyle. So it's really unique in the fact that you get a great education, you have a great opportunity to play sports at a really high level, and then they're going to hold you to a really high standard in your personal and spiritual lives. And so it's a really, really unique place and a great place.
So how does that recruiting process look? Because there's obviously the high standards, the Christianity, the academic part, and then how far does the recruiting go in the U.S., around the world? You got to do a lot of homework because you got to filter through a lot of players to get those standards.
Yeah, I mean, we get emails from people worldwide. I mean, we get tons of emails every day. I'm sure, like every Division I program. When I'm talking to a recruit, the first thing that we'll talk about, excuse me, is their grades. Obviously, they have to be able to get into school academically.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, we'll go over the honor code in detail. And my very first question is like, hey, is this something that you're interested in? Is this something that you're okay with, the honor code? And we've had some kids that have said, "Hey, coach, that's not what I'm looking for in a college experience." And that's okay. I've always just tell them thank you for being upfront and honest, because frankly, if a kid comes here and they're not looking for that, they don't want to live that way, they're not going to be happy here. If they're not happy here, they're not going to be the best player that they can be. So that's the first thing we do to vet them out. And then we go into the program and the baseball side of that, that tends to be like the third thing that we really get into when we start conversations with recruiting kids.
This is kind of beating a dead horse in a lot of ways, but I still want to address it because we may have some parents online. I know most high school, college coaches understand this part, but also international, possibly the scholarships. Everybody, I'm going to get a scholarship, and if someone's going to pay my way to school, talk about the scholarships and also other avenues of just a baseball scholarship.
Yeah, we have all our guys fill out a FAFSA, that are born in the US. We have them fill out a FAFSA, because they're going to need all the financial help they can get. There's 11.7 scholarships basically to divide amongst 27 guys. And so, I think people think, hey, I'm going to get a full ride scholarship, and those things they really don't exist. So we divide them up. Obviously, the better your grades are, we can stack. It's harder at BYU, but a lot of places you can stack academic money. It's harder to get academic money at BYU just because the general student that comes in with a 28 on the ACT and a 3.9 GPA. So
Wow.
to get academic money, you have to be above that. So, but yeah, the better academically you are, we have a lady here, Colette Shaw, that's amazing at helping our student athletes find avenues to get scholarships. There's scholarships out there. If you're international, there's international scholarships that are set up just for you. So she helps those guys find scholarships that'll apply to them, that'll help them. And then we try to stack that all together and give them the best that they can. But the reality is, we have between 8 to 10 guys every year on our team that walk on and pay their own way. And that's just the reality of college baseball right now.
I know with those standards, I would have needed a miracle to get into that school. I'd be working 10 years on that one, but that's just me. There's a lot of great kids out there, and speaking about when you're looking at kids, I know, I've had other coaches on the show talk about, what they look for in certain players. Is there anything different that, that kind of attracts you to players, whether it be physically, mentally, what during a game, when you're looking at them? Is there something that, even a message to players out there, what you're kind of looking for in someone?
Yeah. I think, obviously we want great athletes. When you're recruiting at this level, you have to recruit a kid that has a skill set that can play at this level, so you have to look at those things. I think one of the things that gets lost, Peter, and this is going to sound goofy to you, but when we recruit, one of the things that we really bear down on is how are they as baseball players? Sometimes we get so caught up in like he can run a 6'5",
Right.
60 and he throws 90 from the outfield, and he's got all this, and then the question is, okay, well, he can do all that, but can he play?
Absolutely.
So we want to find baseball players.
Yeah.
I think of Coach Birmingham's team at New Mexico. Man, he would fill his roster with baseball kids, and they might physically not run as good or whatever, but they beat the crap out of you because they know how to play the game, and they play when it matters. So I think that's our first thing. Obviously, the physical tools have to match up, but we want baseball players. We were really fortunate just the other day. Bryce Harper came and spoke to our team.
Wow.
Bryce Harper and Bryson Stott. Bryson was a first round pick with the Phillies out of UNLV.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved what Bryce, he talked about to our guys about, hey, being a good teammate. And if I had $1 for every time he said, just love one another, love each other.
Wow.
I thought that was really insightful. And he talked about how hard that was for him as a young player in the big leagues. He was in the big leagues at 19 years old. So, a lot of the kids in our meeting were 19 our freshmen were 19 years old, and he was in the big leagues. And he said, man, I wish I could have learned that lesson earlier in my career, to just really love each other, be the best teammate, support each other, whether you're fighting for the same job. If you go 0 for 4 and he goes 4 for 4, just be genuinely happy for him. And so those are some of the things that we look at, like how are they as teammates? How are they with their coaches? I like to think that when we're recruiting a kid that we do a lot of homework and we try to find out as much as we can about a kid. But man, I think when I'm watching games, I'm really spending probably 65 to 70% of my time watching what they're doing when they're not between the lines, when they're in the dugout, when they're on the deck circle, and how they act with their teammates and their coaches, and watching them, believe it or not, how they interact with their parents before and after games. Those are the things that are going to separate players from being, good players to great players, so we put a high premium on those things, and it was really validating to hear that from the NL MVP. Maybe arguably the best player in the world.
Absolutely, man. And he had to grow up early. I remember seeing him in the Pan Am games at 15. Incredible young man. And talk about growing up fast. He had to do it quick. And yeah, he's a great example. What an exciting thing for him to come speak to the team. The other part of all this, as you mentioned, I remember being an independent ball and scouts would tell me, well, I've got a player for you, right? And, I'd ask them, okay, tell me about him. Yeah, he could throw, he could run, And my simple question to them, because, we didn't have time to develop players in independent ball. We need to win right now. We need to get a guys, put the team together. Was, can he play? And I get that because, you're seeing more and more kids out there that, maybe because sometimes at the younger levels, we're kind of programming everything for them. We don't allow them to play the game on their own a little bit. And I love when coaches just let you play the game a little bit and then learn from your mistakes. Like Michael Jordan said, he made thousands of mistakes before he even became a very good player. I think that's important in that development phase, for a young person. And now all of a sudden the college coach sees that and says, man, that's the guy I want.
Yeah, I think the guy I think of is we had a kid here. I think he was a 6th round draft pick, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, named Jackson Clough. And I just remember watching him play in high school, and as he came up, he was a good player. Physically, he was probably a little undersized at that point, and definitely he was a recruited player. I wouldn't say like a super highly recruited player, but a recruited player. But I fell in love with how he went about the game, and he kind of had that moxie and that savvy, and he just knew what to do. We talk about it all the time. He was playing short for us, and there was like a little blooper over the third baseman's head, and he went to get it, and like just instinctively picked up the ball and threw it to the plate and threw a guy out, where I think 99% of players probably wouldn't have known to do that and would have probably just ran the ball in or thrown the ball to second base. But he just had that instinct. He's a player. And he's going to play in the big leagues. I think he'll play in the big leagues this year with the Nationals. He was the defensive player of the year in the Arizona Fall League. And he's a baseball player, and he's turned himself into a really toolsy good athlete as well. But at the time when we were recruiting him, like I said, he was an undersized guy that was just a really, really good high IQ baseball player. And I attribute that, going back to what we talked about earlier, is practice and going through those things so that when those situations come up in the games, you can just play free and easy and instinctively, because you've practiced that stuff so much that it just happens within the game. And I think our players now today, like you said, they play so much that they don't have an opportunity to do those things. And so when the game's going on, I think there can be a little delay, so I think they can benefit from just practicing and learning, and then when they play that, then they can turn it off and just be really good athletes and instinctive players.
Yeah, you see a lot of young players, obviously, as a recruiting coordinator. You go around and see a lot of games. The two coaches out there, it could be high school coaches, could be travel coaches, a lot of programs that you're looking at. Advice maybe on, you mentioned a few things now, but advice on some things that you see that players are lacking that you'd love to see that they already have when they get to college. And one of them, is the game stuff that you talked about, being game experienced a little bit.
Yeah, I think you just when you talk about baseball, like, I think it's amazing to me how, I remember when, I didn't play Division I baseball, so I remember coming to BYU thinking, man, what am I going to teach these kids? They're far better players than I ever was, and they're going to know more than I ever knew. And the thing you learn is they don't. Uh, Kids come here as freshmen, some of them, and they don't know how to run a tandem relay or a double cut. They don't know, they don't know the ins and outs of bunt defense and first and third defense. And those are things that win games, being able to execute those things. So I would say for the younger coaches, don't get so caught. I mean, even if you're playing a lot, take an hour and a half a day and run through tandem relays so they know where they're going when that happens. Run through bunt defenses and first and third defenses and teach them exactly why they're doing what they're doing. Why do we do this? And we went through a little drill yesterday. We're in our short group work, so we only have our guys for about 45 minutes to an hour a day. And we talked to our outfielders a lot about, like, hey, conceding the first runner and keeping the double play in order and keeping the guy at first base, and knowing when to do that and why to do that and how to do it. And some of these kids are 22, 23 years old, seniors, and they're still learning. But I think as coaching younger kids, if you could teach them those things at a younger age, man, it's going to free them up to be better players.
Yeah, and I like hearing college and professional coaches, especially professional coaches, saying, "Hey, look, don't give up the bunting game. Don't give up how to bunt. Don't go, bunt for a hit, slap, whatever, push bunt, whatever it may be, or other skills in the game." I'm assuming, Brent, when you're talking about college coaches, you're looking for the complete package in a lot of these players. You're not looking for one-dimensional player, because I'm seeing a lot of young coaches stay away from teaching some of those things. Because they don't see it in the big leagues being used as much. Well, but only so many players are going to make the big leagues.
Sure. Well, I just think you learn those things. If the more complete you are, the better you are. With analytics, the analytics stuff is a little mind-boggling to me. I mean, it's the stuff, the numbers they have for things. You just like, wow, how do you even think to figure that out? And it's really beneficial. Just this year in the convention, I was so interested in Coach Pickler with the Reds. His presentation was one of my favorites of the convention, and he talked a lot about analytics and that stuff to me is awesome. Those things give you an edge. But a kid knowing how to bunt, the analytics might tell us, hey, don't bunt, in the first 6 innings of a game. Well, if I have to get a bunt down in the 8th inning of a game and it's the difference between us winning or losing, then I better be able to do it and do it well. So those things are important. The other thing that they don't talk a lot about is that, hey, don't bunt, but what if you're bunting for a hit? I talked to we had a kid here. His grandfather was Vern Law, who was a Cy Young winner, and his dad Vance played in the big leagues for a long time, was the head coach at BYU. Adam Law, who's with the Dodgers. He's doing mental strength stuff with the Dodgers and doing some front office stuff. But when he was in pro ball, when he left our place, I talked to him about, hey, we did the math. Like, if you could get one bunt base hit a week over a minor league or major league season, it's 100 points to your batting average. Wow. One bunt base hit a week, one extra hit a week is 100 points over the course of a season. Like, tell me one minor league player that's hitting 220 that wouldn't go to wouldn't like to hit 320 and have a chance to go from A ball to double A or double A to triple A. And so it's a bullet you can put in your gun, and if you're good at it, it helps you.
Absolutely.
And then you go into, okay, well, you even show, but like, you're going to bunt for a hit. and it's going to move the infield, and it's going to open things up for you for when you swing. So, being able to do all those things are going to make you the most complete player. The best players in the world are the most complete players.
Right. What's your practices look like? Curious. What's the mandate of the players at your practice? What do you guys focus on? Because we hear this a lot: practice organization and game-like stuff. What's that look like? What do you demand? Because a lot of times as coaches, we sometimes let things slip.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate. Our head coach, Coach Littlewood, he is so good at practice organization. He's a very detailed guy and super organized, and our practices follow suit because of that. But one thing that he's always taught me, that I've really absorbed is, we've always believed in like short practices. I remember as a player, those 5-6 hour practices that you kind of go, man, do I want to go to practice today? I'm going to spend 3 hours standing around and maybe an hour of hitting, and you get bogged down. So ours are short, our segments are short. And we say, hey, look, we want them to show up every day. We want them to come to the field every day. 2, they know what they're coming to. And so, hey, we want you just to be really engaged and high energy and open to coaching. So a typical practice for us would be, we show up, we do some sort of base running fundamental. And it could be anything from, hard 90s to turns to stealing bases to going first to third to going second to home. One of the things that we've talked a lot about, I had the fortune of coaching with Terry Collins in the Northwood League.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I'll never forget, we talked probably for an hour one day during a game about, second base and, when to tag and when not to tag. And, I'll just never forget him saying, hey man, with 1 out, if for any reason the ball hits the ground, you better score standing up, And so we try to teach our players those things. And so that's the first, 10 to 12 minutes of our practice. We'll typically go into to an individual defense fundamental. I'm the outfield coach, so I'll take the outfielders and we try to be super detailed into what we're teaching and try to be really good about covering everything that they're going to see potentially in a game. Like I said, yesterday was knowing when to throw behind a runner. From there, we'll go into some sort of a team segment for 10 to 12 minutes. It might be bunt defense. It might be first and third defense. It might be tandem relays. It might be relays, whatever it is. We'll do that for 10 to 12 minutes. We'll go in, and from that, we'll go into our hitting segment. And, our hitting segment, everything's scored. Everything is, we want it to be as live as possible. And our guys are going to get as many live looks off the bat as they possibly can. We have an awesome hitting game that we play quite a bit that I learned it from Coach Bach. Maybe the best high school coach in the country, in my opinion, out of Arkansas. That's really good. But we try to make it super competitive. We try to get them in, get them out fairly quick. And we want them to come to the park every day. So, and like I said, we just want to make sure that we turn every stone so that nothing comes up in the season and we go, man, we haven't practiced that. I'll never forget. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago. We were playing our rival, in-state rival Utah, and they ran a play where the guy fell down like at second base, fell down and kind of deked us, and they ended up scoring a run on it. And so now we practice that. I mean, it's like, hey, we didn't practice that. We hadn't seen that. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that we've incorporated in our practice. So we want to practice everything that we're possibly going to see in a live game situation.
Well, is that what's changed the most since you were playing or coaching at the, early on when it comes to practice? What things have changed since you started?
The game, everywhere I've been, we've done the same variation of different things. I think one thing that we do really well that, I shouldn't say we didn't do as well, but I don't know, is the shortness of it. We don't get
Hmm.
bogged down into a drill,
Yeah.
and we try not to ever have our guys standing still for a whole lot of time. We want them moving. We want them to be engaged, and so I think that's probably the best thing for us. Um, and like I said, that's probably the one thing that I've really taken from coach. A lot of things I've in 14 years I've taken from coach, but he's really really good at that.
What's it look like when there's a bunt coverage or maybe a game situation in practice and it's not done well? What's that situation look like? How do you
Well, it's
correct it?
it's coaching. And sometimes you get after guys, and sometimes you can love them into it, but that's where we coach, and that's why we get paid to be here and to do what we're doing. I think the amount of coaching that happens in practice is far more important than the amount of coaching that comes in a game. I remember another thing I talked to Terry Collins about is like, man, in a major league game, he said, man, I make maybe one or two decisions or three decisions in a game that has any impact, whereas in practice, almost on every rep, we can coach something, whether it's positive reinforcement, whether it's, hey, this needs to get better. You need to do this. I talk a lot, talk about to my outfielders all the time about when you get the ball, get it to your throwing side shoulder, and so just little things. You're trying to teach little things all the time, and so you can't get so caught up in teaching that you don't give the positive reinforcement, because I think that's the thing that I've noticed in my 20 years of coaching is that you need more of those positive kudos and pats on the backs and butts, now more than maybe we did as players, because it's a different generation of kid, and they're dealing with different things than we dealt with, and so it's important for us to give that too, the
Yeah,
positive
it's
reinforcement.
yeah, and it's interesting talking to coaches. They say, sometimes I'll ask, have players changed? And say, no, society's changed, but players have changed because we do have to, pat them on the back a little bit more. I know our days, I didn't get that as much. Sometimes it's try going to Japan and getting a pat in the back.
Yeah,
You do this and you get it done. Otherwise, you ain't playing. I understand that's a different society. The other part of all this um, is, when you're talking, I'm glad you brought it up, the practice part, because here you are at the highest college level and you guys emphasize practicing a lot. And yet we need to also, because I think it's a great message for our younger players and coaches that are working with young kids, because we are seeing kids playing a lot of games. And I get it. We need game experience. I'm in Illinois, Chicago, it's cold. Midwest, we want to play more games, but sometimes we forget how important practice is. Before we get into the American Samoa program, I wanted to address this. Talk about why it's so important for practice, not just for the game skills, but there's got to be other reasons for making sure that you practice more than you play, especially at the young levels.
yeah. I'm just like literally in my mind trying to do the math as we talk. We're going to play 56 games. I hope we play closer to 70 games this year, but we're going to play 56 games typically in the regular season. Um, we're going to practice well over 100 days this year.
Wow.
And honestly, even when we go on the road, we'll go, we play a little different because we don't play on Sunday. We're the only university in the that doesn't Division I university that doesn't play on Sunday. So
Sure.
we're going to fly out on Wednesday, and we get there Wednesday, and we're going to go practice Wednesday night, almost 100% of the time. So we're going to practice far more days than we play. And I heard somebody say it at the convention. Hey, practice is for the coaches, the games are for the players, and I totally agree with that. Like, hey, on game day, not that you're not going to coach on game day, not that you're not going to teach on game day, but man, we want to create an environment where those guys can go out and just play and apply the things that they've learned in practice. So, and I wanted to add something on today's player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can you imagine, Peter, when you were a player and a coach told you to do something, asking them why?
Right.
I mean, I would have never dared to ever say why. I mean, hey, I want you to stand on your head and catch this ground ball. Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm going to do my best.
Yep.
And this generation of kids, they want to know why. And you know what? I wish now, looking back, that I could have known the why on some things, and I probably could have bought into some things better, and it would have made me a better player. And and so, you know, it's a different generation of player. It's a different generation of kid, and it's a different generation of player. So I think that's awesome. I love that they want to know why. I love that they're confident in themselves enough to say, Coach, why are we doing it that way? So
yeah, I agree. Boy, I'm glad you brought that point up because I agree with you 100%. And the other part of that is it's interesting because I've traveled the world and I tell guys, ask anytime we say something, ask, why are we doing this? And it's interesting because not only from anybody, sometimes I've gotten responses on, well, why aren't we doing it this way? And then I'm thinking, wait a second, that's not a bad idea. And I think our ego gets in the way sometimes, right? Because we hear a better idea and it might come from a player, it might come from a coach from another country, or it might even come from a coach that's only coached 5 years, doesn't matter. But man, all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, that's a good point. Maybe I need to change my philosophy and what I'm doing in that particular area.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's good to have those conversations. You probably know Ray Brown. I had a long conversation one time with Ray Brown about tandem relays and double cuts, and we went around and we chased each other's tail for a long time, and ultimately, I'm going to do it the way that I believe it should be done. He's going to do it the way he believes it should be done. We're probably both right and we're probably both wrong. So, I think it's healthy to have those conversations and to be okay with not always agreeing or seeing eye to eye on something. I love Ray and man, I've learned so much about baseball from him and hopefully him from me, but it's okay, but we'd have never even had that conversation if we weren't willing to say why not, why not, and so yeah, I think that's great.
Right, we got a lot of players around the world always asking, how do I get to play college baseball in the States? It's so competitive. There's so much going, so many players playing it. I think most of us understand, of course, if you know someone like a coach in another country, a coach, it helps when that coach recommends a player because the coach, they know what you're looking for and all that. But, there's not a lot of guys like that. I mean, you don't always know everybody around the world. What's a young person or a coach from another country? How do they reach out to somebody at a Division I program, not just Division I, but all programs, to get looked at, maybe get an opportunity, maybe some tips in that area? Because even myself, I try to help some players internationally when I can.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I spend a week every summer in the Dominican Republic, doing camps and playing games. And I take a group of high school kids from the U.S. and we go down and we play games against Dominican teams. You see those kids down there, and man, I've had some kids down there that, like, this kid looks like Albert Pujols and plays like Albert Pujols, and he would do anything. He'd chop off toes to go be a college baseball player. And but this past summer was interesting. There was a kid that was down there from Israel, and man, he was a really interesting player. I mean, good player. He actually ended up playing with us. We adopted him in and let him play with our team, and so I kind of have been mentoring him and helping him with that process. I think the beauty of it is with podcasts like this and with video, man, you can take video in whatever country you're in, and with the click of a button, it can be in my email in seconds, and so we can evaluate you that way. I think the one thing that I would tell all the international players that are looking for that opportunity is have an open mind and be willing to go wherever you need to go to play. And but you are starting to see a lot more players from all over the world infiltrate into to baseball, junior college baseball, on up to Division I baseball. And it's awesome for our game, and it's awesome for the international game for those kids.
Yeah, and great point. I mean, they got to understand Division I's a pretty high level, and there's high levels at every division. Really understanding their ability, right, and where it fits in somewhere in the U.S. That may be one of the hardest things, because they have to determine, can I play there, and really understand, can I play there? Can I go to school there? Am my education good enough? And that's not easy to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with international kids, and we deal with this with the Dominican a lot. It's a kid has to pass the TOEFL test, and there's a lot of requirements that they have to do. They have to be very driven. I know, at least in the Dominican and some of the other places I've been, some of the challenges are them getting student visas and different things like that. So, all those things are important, that you have to be able to figure those things out to make it happen. For me to get a kid in from the Dominican Republic, he has to have a specific TOEFL score. And if he doesn't have that, then he's just not going to get into school. Whereas, there's some junior colleges out there that, man, you don't even have to speak a word of English, and they'll bring you in and they'll teach you English and they'll let you play, and you can go there and have a great experience, and then transfer to a Division I school. It's funny. I think it's the same here in the U.S. as it is worldwide. I mean, if I had a dollar for every time I talk to a kid, hey, I really want to go to Vanderbilt, and I'll sit there and I'll look at him and smile and go, you know what? I want to go to Vanderbilt too. I would love to play at Vanderbilt. I'm 45 years old. Still would love to play at Vanderbilt. I was not good enough to play at Vanderbilt, and so, just like, be able to assess yourself. And if you can't assess yourself of where you fit in the spectrum, then trust people that can assess you, and then wherever you go, just make it, I tell our kids all the time, man, the big leagues is where you're at. So whether you're at BYU or whether you're at Southern Virginia University, that's the big leagues for you right now.
It's great that, now Major League Baseball International, they do a lot of camps all around the world. And one of the things they started to realize was that for a lot of these young players that they want to sign, the best thing is to get them in the college first, because a lot of times they sign them, they go, minor league ball, and they just can't handle it. They're just too young, and, mentally, sometimes physically, they're just not ready for it. But if you put in a college program, whether it be JUCO or anywhere else, that's a place where you're going to get developmentally, physically, so you can prepare yourself for college baseball. Hey, listen, Dominican Republic, okay? Now all of a sudden, Brett Haring, it's not tough enough to be BYU, not only coach, but also recruiting coordinator. Now you're you've been the head coach of the American Samoa national program. I mean, anything else you want to do?
I love baseball, Peter.
You do.
I mean, if you called me and said, hey, we're going to Yugoslavia, I'd say I've never, I can't find that on a map, but, let's go. I'm in,
How did that all start?
So my wife is Samoan, and her dad grew up on the island. It's a small island of about 60,000 people. He grew up there, and when he came to the U.S. and joined the military, and he had no exposure to the game of baseball until he got to the U.S. And he ended up settling in Long Beach, California, and became a Dodgers fan. He was a left-handed. He played a lot of cricket, and he was a left-handed. I guess it's called a bowler in cricket.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was kind of settling in Long Beach, they had a guy playing for the Dodgers named Fernando Valenzuela, and he always said, man, if I'd have grown up in the U.S., I would have played for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah.
And so he never had that opportunity. And so, like that to me was like, hey, what can I give back to the game? I can go over there and I can help develop the game of baseball on the island of American Samoa. There's been great people before me, and there's great people there that are trying to grow it. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I want to say in like 2010, Murphy Su'a, who is a dear friend of mine, asked me if I wanted to go over and run some camps, and we took a team from the U.S. and we played played some games over there. And obviously, with my family connection with my wife, and that was a tremendous thing. The president of the American Samoa Baseball Association at that time was a guy named Victor Lankilde, who's become like a brother to me. I mean, he's literally, I consider him my brother. He was the president of the association, and shortly after I returned, I was coaching at Dixie College back then, or Dixie State University back then. He called and said, "Hey, we would like for you to come and lead our program." And I told him I would be honored. And really, it was an opportunity for me to give back to my father-in-law and to the Samoan kids. We're fortunate. I try to speak Samoan. I've kind of taught myself how to speak, and so it's an opportunity for me to go and to learn the culture and the language more so than I even do here in my home. But we go to a Samoan church, and so a good percentage of the people that I associate with are Samoan or Pacific Islander, and I absolutely love the culture and the people. And really the only thing I have that I can give them is baseball, because I'm not smart enough to give them anything else, and I don't have enough money to give them any of that. So I give them what I have, and that's baseball.
Excellent. And it's interesting. I can imagine a lot of coaches listening, or people listening to the podcast or watching, thinking American Samoa baseball. I thought maybe it would be, rugby, cricket, but sounds like pretty good athletes there. Big kids, strong, athletic. What sports they play? Does that help?
Yeah. So, they've done some things on ESPN and whatnot about football in American Samoa.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, 60,000 people. Man, I don't know the new number, but it used to be they had 60 kids in the NFL. So I remember ESPN or something did a 60 Minutes did a thing on it, and they were like 100 times more likely to make it to the NFL if you grew up in American Samoa, or if you're of Samoan descent than everybody else. So yeah, they're big, strong. It's funny because they're big, strong people. But the thing about them that I've always said is their quick twitch, which you and I know is totally key in baseball. And there's a couple guys out there. My very first trip to Samoa, we had a kid on our team named Isaiah Kiner Falifa, and like I want to say he was a sophomore in high school, and I fell in love with him, and we offered him a scholarship at Dixie, and he actually committed to us at Dixie. And he just won a Gold Glove 2 years ago with the Texas Rangers. He played shortstop for the Rangers. You have Sean Manaea, who they call him the Samoan Randy Johnson, who's in the big leagues with the A's, and so they're starting to get more of those guys. Nick Tanielu, who's right there with the Astros on the cusp of making the big league team, and those guys are the trailblazers. To my knowledge, before that, the only guy, Mike Fetters, pitched in the big leagues for a long time, and he's Samoan. And but the first guy was a guy named Tony Soliita, and that was back in the late 70s, early 80s, and those are the trailblazers. But man, I totally believe there's a ton of Samoan kids both in American Samoa and here in the U.S. That could be the next wave of big league all-stars.
Yeah, and that's why I love doing a podcast, especially when there's international connections, because we learn about a new country with baseball. But a lot of people may not have known that there's baseball there. I was going to ask you, how do you attract these young kids? And I'm looking at my time, folks, just because I know Brent's very busy. I want to make sure we respect his time here. But I was thinking, to attract kids now, obviously all these guys that have made it to the big leagues, that's attractable. That's a path. The college baseball is a path, but you still got to give them the play. Are there things that they do there to kind of get kids to play the game? We're talking about, folks, 60,000 people in the country. And in a minute, we're going to talk about them competing in Oceana, competing in the World Championships also, and beating in 2019, defeating Australia's second rank in the country, one of the best baseball countries in the world. So how do you get these young kids to play the game?
Yeah, so they the president over there is Marcus Lankilde, and he's done a great job of getting it going. They have him and Victor have put together a great little league program over there, and high school. It's funny, they play, I think, a season of like 10 games in high school over there.
Wow.
There's eight schools, and I don't even think all 8 of them have. I think maybe 6 of them have teams. So they've been really good about getting those kids out, getting them to play little league and t-ball, and starting them at that age. But pre-COVID, I would try to go out once a year and do a week long of clinics. And one thing that's really grown over there is softball, with the Ricketts sisters, them being Samoan. In fact, we were together on that very first trip to
Ricketts.
Samoa. Yeah, Kaylani Ricketts and Samantha's the head coach, I believe, at Mississippi State. And Kaylani's maybe the best player in the world.
No ties to the Cubs owner.
No, I don't think so. That's a good question.
Well, some financial help here, right?
Yeah,
that could help.
Yeah, but Jocelyn Allo from Hawaii, she's maybe the best player in college baseball right now. So softball's really blowing up with them, and baseball as well. But so we just try to get them to play as much as we can. I tell people all the time, it's still grassroots level over there. We're still trying to get as many kids out as we possibly can, and we hope if we can get 300 or 400 kids out at the entry level, that we'll have 10 to 12 kids at some point that are ready to go play college baseball at some point.
Yeah, and one advantage that they have is, it sounds like they're athletic. Like what you're getting them at a young age, but it looks like they play other sports and they're athletic, and like you said, they're strong in some ways. That could be something good for the future.
No doubt. Yeah, and it's amazing. You go over there and you work with these young kids, and how quickly they can grasp the concepts that you're teaching, and they're super athletic. So they're able to pick up things really quick, and so it's a lot of fun. And and then as far as the roster, we try to find kids. We use the state of Hawaii. There's a ton of Polynesian kids in the state of Hawaii that we're able to get to play on our team, and they love representing Polynesia, and so we're able to use that, and we try to track as many kids as we can in the U.S. To play for us on the national team they have the same opportunities that all these other high school kids have here in the U.S.
On the show, we talk a lot about coaching. Development of coaching is the foundation of the sport in any country, anywhere in the world. If you don't have good coach at the real young levels, sayonara to the game, because sooner or later, kids are going to find something else to do if we don't have good coaching. There's not good development, especially long term. And man, I think I beat that to a dead horse talking about that, how important that is. You going there, obviously, that and it's a small country, not many coaches because there's not many players yet. Easy to kind of help mold some of those coaches. You learn from them, they learn from you. Talk a little bit about that process, how important that is if you're going to develop the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to have you got to have people that can pass knowledge on to the kids, and you want them passing the right knowledge on. And so yeah, when we go over there, it's fun to see those coaches. They'll be just as attentive to what we're doing as and the parents as the kids are, because they want to learn and they're hungry to learn too. And a lot of them played when they were young, and so yeah, so it's a great thing. And man, what an awesome place. I mean, there's a big piece of my heart that is attached to that little small island.
Brent, same issues we have in the U.S. I mean, obviously we have a lot of players here, but same issues when it comes to maybe parents and maybe coaches sometimes can be too competitive, or it is a little different there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same everywhere. I mean, people are competitive. People don't like to lose. My wife gives me a hard time all the time. She said she doesn't want to play any board games or card games with me because I'm a poor loser. And I think that's the case anywhere you go. And
Sure.
I think one of the things that inhibits kids here and everywhere worldwide is they're so focused on what they want. They want to get a college scholarship. They want to, that they lose track of what they have to do today to do that. And so that's the thing that I think for me, it's like, especially over there in Samoa, like, hey, let's not worry so much about wins and losses and those things, but let's focus on learning the game and learning the skills and learning the fundamentals. And as you do that, and as you become better at those and more proficient at those, obviously it's going to lead to more wins, and it's going to lead to the other things. But if you overlook that because you just want to win at all costs and you want to get that scholarship, and it's like, don't lose sight of what's going to actually help you accomplish that.
Folks, we're talking to Brent Haring. He is the head coach of the American Samoa national team, 18U, and also the coach at Brigham Young University and top recruiting coordinator for the university. I was looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, you're playing in Oceana, you got Australia, you got New Zealand, you got a lot of other countries. They're pretty competitive. Now you're heading to the 18U World Championship. So you talk about competition. Holy Moses, you're going up against the best in the world. How the American Samoa, how are you putting your team together? Where are these players coming from? Just from the country, or from other areas because they got family there? How does this all work?
Yeah, so the beauty is to be eligible to play for American Samoa. To play for any country, you have to have a passport of the country that you represent, because American Samoa is a U.S. Territory. The passport's a U.S. passport. So we've been fortunate. When we went to Guam, I think we had 11 kids actually from American Samoa on that team that came from American Samoa, and then the other might have been 10 and 10, but we were able to go out and find some Samoan kids that played here locally in the U.S. And some kids with Polynesian ties in the state of Hawaii that want to represent Polynesia. And so we put that team together, and we're in the process right now of putting together our team for the World Cup. And we've got kids from Georgia and Virginia and all over that have Samoan ties. that are really anxious to play, that are good players. Obviously, the state of Hawaii has been really good to us. The state of California, there's, I tell people all the time, there's probably more Samoans in Long Beach, Carson than there are in Samoa. So we try to hit those communities and we try to find those players, and then we try to use those guys to help build the guys from the island, and it gives those guys from the island a chance to see what baseball looks like at a little faster level and a little higher, play, just have played a lot more.
Brent, we are coming close to the end, and trust me, I could talk for 3 hours with you about baseball in general, but also American Samoan baseball. We're talking about, now you've got to put these guys together. You got to get your national team together, and you got to prepare them. Is that done? That's going to be done in American Samoa. How long is it going to take you? What's your focus there?
Yeah, we're in the process right now of identifying players and reaching out to players and getting that roster set. It's funny, when we went to Guam for the Oceania game, the first day that we practiced as a group, as a team, our whole team together, was the day before our first game. And that's just a reality. Now I
Yes.
know with this thing and playing on this stage, man, we're so grateful for the opportunity to play on this stage and to put America Samoa on this map and this stage with the amazing teams that we're going to get to play against. I think we're going to try to get them together a little earlier, maybe a week or two in advance, and hopefully play some friendly games and so they can get to know each other. But the beauty of this is, Peter, I don't know how well or if you know many Polynesian people, but they're the most loving, kind-hearted people in the world. And it's funny, the word culture comes around all the time in sports and baseball especially. I've never seen a group of kids like come together and gel and learn to love each other as fast as I did that team in Americans. That was unbelievable. And honestly, probably the highlight of my whole coaching career was watching those guys within 48 hours, like learn to love each other that fast. And when we left Guam, we had guys going back to Samoa, we had guys going to Hawaii, and guys coming to the mainland, and guys, all over. Watching those kids absolutely cry their eyes out because they knew that they weren't going to see each other for a while.
Wow.
And so, I attribute that to their culture and to the people they are. I mean, they know how to love one another, and they're truly, the friendly people is what they call themselves, and it's 100%. They know how to bring people in.
Well, that explains it. I mean, we talk about culture all the time. You hear coaches talking about culture. It's not easy to put together. A lot of it's character, quality people. I talk about the Japanese a lot. I know there's culture all over, good culture all around the world, but the Japanese are really good at it. They're grown up since they're young. They're good people also. And it explains a small country, not many players. You got to come together. I was just in Tenerife, Spain. It was an 18U event, tournament, training program for some of the best 18U in Europe. And I had players from Spain and the Czech Republic and other countries in Europe. And it's amazing how some of them came together. We didn't have much time either, right? To practice. We had 3 practices and played a tournament, and they came together. And the team that came together, Brent, was the team that won. It was amazing to see that. So I could certainly understand that. And I commend you a lot for, doing what you do with baseball in American Samoa. Anything else about American Samoa before we close off that you'd like to say? Anything about why they're being, so successful and why they're getting better? And by the way, I forgot, shout out to ESPN Honolulu. What a great tie-in. ESPN Honolulu talking baseball with American Samoa. Anything else about American Samoa you want to mention?
Man, like I said, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to Victor Lankilde and to Marcus Lankilde, our president, and the governor and the island. You know, it was so awesome to see when we made that run in Oceania and beat Australia. You know, that little country was just, they were so excited. And I hope we can put a product on the field that'll make them really proud. And I'm so grateful to those guys and the governor and all those people that are so supportive of us. And you know, that, I think that's the thing I would say is I'm just super humbled for the opportunity to be the head coach there. I'm super humbled that they trust us. And so, you know, yeah, I'm really grateful for that. And so, yeah, I think that's where I would leave that.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I read the article on where the government did help with some funding, which is kind of neat because you don't, in the US, we don't have government funding in sports. In other countries, you do, especially if you do really well. I want to wish you and all the folks in American Samoa best of luck in the 18U World Championships. That's the WBSC World Championships. Lastly, I'm going to save you, Brent. We all, with everything we get to do, and especially you, American Samoa, college recruiting, you're never around. It's got to be tough because you got to recruit for American Samoa also. We got great wives. If you didn't have a great wife, you wouldn't be able to be doing what you're doing, right?
And I've got the best one. My wife is, she's the most supportive. She's the most supportive person I know. And, it's funny, you go through a career and you have highs and lows, and, you have those moments where it's like, man, I'm just going to quit, I'm ready to be done. And, my wife literally won't let me. So, I'm so grateful to her and for her love and support. She's the absolute best. And so I just hope that when I go out and I do these things, that I represent her and our family well. We got 2 little boys that do sacrifice time with me for what I love. And so, I'm grateful. I got a beautiful family, and I appreciate you bringing that up because you're 100% right. I couldn't do any of what I do without the support of my family behind me.
Yeah, likewise. I agree 100%, man. Thank you to all the wives and even girlfriends that are out there, because you got to be supportive of each other to get things done in life. All right, man. Listen, I know you got a lot going on. You're busy. I really appreciate you being on the show. And we'll put all the show notes together where people can get a hold of you, whether it be for American Samoa or whether it be for BYU. Maybe you got some questions on recruiting. If it's okay, I'll put your email there, or later you can give me the information that you want up, and then we'll that way people can reach you. Man, I appreciate this.
Please do, man. Peter, I can't thank you enough for having me. I've admired you for a long time and what you do for the game of baseball internationally. And so to be here and to be with you has been an absolute thrill for me. So thank you very much. And for all you baseball fans, if you don't have a dog in the fight in September for the World Baseball Classic, you can jump on with American Samoa, and we'll take you into our family. You can come support us and cheer for us, and we'll love you for it. So
there you go. And I know
so much, Peter.
And I thank you, Brent. I know I'm going to make time, hopefully, to come to see the island and see some of the baseball there. And thank you for reaching out at the ABCA, because you're the one that saw me and came up to me. And I really appreciate that, because it made that connection again. Folks, special thank you to Brent Haring, again, with BYU, American Samoa. Special thank you to everybody in the U.S. and around the world. Don't forget our producer, Brian Kroc, with the Lineup Media Group. They do a great job of putting a show together. And special thank you to everybody in the U.S. and around the world. Without you, the show doesn't go. So please keep sharing the show. It really helps us out. We're just trying to get it out as much as possible, educate everybody in the game of baseball, all facets of the game. We can talk baseball development. We can talk Major League Baseball, anything you like. We love doing what we do. And remember, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless you. And we will see you all on the next show.
Thanks, Peter. Go Cougs.